What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we got a new but very tiny clip of Modern Warfare 2. Looks like this is coming from the campaign, and while we've seen most of these sections of the gameplay in like previous trailers and teasers and stuff, there are a few new clips in here, and there's one thing in particular that I wanted to point out that made this worthwhile to make a video on, and that is the Riot Shield has been officially confirmed now. And up until this point, we haven't seen the Riot Shield show up in any promotional stuff. So today, I just wanted to make a very quick video talking about some of my hopes for the Riot Shield, because when handled improperly, I feel like the Riot Shield can be a bit of a problem in Call of Duty. Before we get into that though, I just wanted to point out, it looks like we're going to be seeing the return of more of the OG style Riot Shield from much older Call of Duty games, like the original Modern Warfare franchise, where the shield itself is much more translucent all the way through. It's not like a proper ballistic shield where it's primarily steel with a small window to look through. And that's just aesthetic stuff, but I personally like the looks of this style. Also, it looks like while crouched, the character on the left does have good coverage over the top of his head, and that's something we didn't see in Vanguard, at least early on especially. I noticed enemies could still just shoot the top of your head because the top of your head would poke out the top, and that kind of made it useless to use, at least as a primary weapon. And then finally from this, I noticed the character on the left, it almost looks like they're blind firing around the edge of the shield. So I'm curious to see if that's a mechanic they're going to be implementing with the shield this time around, because depending on how they would balance that, that could be either really fun and enjoyable or potentially really frustrating. I think if they gave that power to secondary weapons only, for instance, that could potentially be a lot of fun. So those are really the only observations I've made so far with these shields. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about my hopes for the shield. Because like I said, when handled improperly, the shield can become quite an annoyance and quite frustrating, and it has the potential to really break up the flow in a multiplayer match. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily hate the idea of having a Riot Shield in multiplayer. I think it's fine to have one, and if it's balanced properly, it can add a little bit of gameplay variety, and it can be kind of enjoyable to switch up your gameplay style a bit and use a Riot Shield. Having said that though, I do feel like they have to be careful with the shield to make sure that it's kept in check. And honestly, my primary concern with the shield is not so much when you're using the shield as your primary weapon, where you're holding it out in front of you, maybe capturing an objective while blocking off a key line of sight toward that objective. I think that's great when shields are used in that way, because that's sort of what they're intended to be used for. I'm more so concerned with how they're going to handle the shield as a secondary weapon on your back. Because this is something that can often be abused by players where they have no intention of actually using that shield as a primary weapon, they're just using it to protect their back. And I do think if you are using the shield in that way, there should be some fairly serious trade-offs to gain that power. Now, the most obvious one is just ensure that the overkill perk is put in a very competitive tier of perks, so you really have to sacrifice something meaningful in order to gain that power of having a shield on your back. So perhaps put it in the same tier slot as Ghost as well as EOD, for instance. So if you want that shield on your back, you're going to be showing up on the radar with UAVs, and you're going to be exposed to explosive damage. And on top of that, if that isn't enough, or if there are like wildcards, for instance, that allow you to use multiple perks from the same tier, then I also wouldn't be opposed to a movement speed penalty if you have that shield on your back, because that just makes sense, and that's just one other method that they could use to help keep it in check, to ensure that you don't have 90% of the lobby running around with a shield on their back. Because when you see really widespread use of that, I just feel like that's constantly breaking up the flow of the map, and it just feels really awkward trying to flank enemies when most of them just have a shield protecting their back. Now, on top of that, I also hope and fully expect to see some proper counterplay to the shield itself. And with this, I'm primarily referring to Semtexes and Thermites, just some pieces of equipment that you can throw at a shield user, stick it to that shield, and effectively guarantee the death of that player as long as you get that stick. And at this point, we've already seen the Thermite in a previous gameplay, as well as a Semtex in the campaign gameplay. So those pieces of equipment are in the game. I'm just hoping that they balance it in such a way that it's a guaranteed kill as long as you stick them with one of those pieces of equipment, even if that player is also using EOD. Now, one final thing I wanted to mention with the Riot Shield is I'm curious to see how they're going to handle camos, if they're going to have camos at all for the Riot Shield. Because in the past few years especially, the Riot Shield has really been notorious for being extremely annoying and frustrating to complete the camo challenges with. And I hope they either keep the challenges much more reasonable than we've seen in recent years, or make it so you don't have to complete the Riot Shield challenge in order to complete the Mastery camo for the weapons, kind of like we saw with Vanguard. With Vanguard, they just lumped it in with other melee weapons, so you didn't need to complete the Riot Shield camo challenges, you could just choose a different melee weapon and you'd be fine for Mastery camo. That one's a little bit more minor and nitpicky for the camo grinders out there, but it is something I wanted to point out as well. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's really quick video. There's not too much else to say about the Riot Shield. I'm actually totally fine with it being in the game, as long as it's kept in check and balanced properly. Now, of course, that is just my opinion, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. What do you think about the fact that we are going to be seeing a Riot Shield in Modern Warfare 2, and what sort of balancing considerations would you like to see made when it comes to these shields? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.